Now with Fat Boy Fresh Volume 1 for members only, uh, I was intrigued because rap is always oftentimes so much about confidence, machismo, bragging. So what, and a lot of people don't like to highlight some of their shortcomings, although that is part of rap, but it's obviously not as prominent, I would say. So what made you have this whole series where you're Fat Boy Fresh?
Uh, Me and my manager at the time, Big Doe, he would always say he was Fat Boy Fresh whenever he stepped out. You know, we big guys, and he would, try to dress to the nines and, have all the matching stuff and all the different things. And his thing was always like, look, man, even though we big, man, we can still be fresh like, the skinny guys like everybody else. So I just took that in meaning, not just dress, but in making music as well. And so I did the first one. And so what really happened was at the time, I was recording so much music. Like I was very efficient. Like I would come in and I would record like 2-3 songs at a time. And so every session I came in, I was recording at least 2 songs. So I had all of these songs, man, all of these records. And it just get to a point when that, okay, this isn't for a project. This isn't for an album. What are you going to do with this work? I don't want to just sit on all this music and just have it on hard drives for my life. So I just started releasing stuff. And that first Fat Boy Fresh was me. I'll say, okay, so I'm giving this a brand. I'm giving this something that people can look forward to, not knowing how many, volumes I was going to end up doing in any of that. But that's just what that became. With that first one, it was just me having a whole bunch of songs that I didn't know what to do with and putting them together and making them into something. And that became Fat Boy Fresh Volume 1 for members only, which also was me launching my own label to put out records via, I had got distribution with Empire. That's when Empire was first starting. A shout out to Ghazi. He had came over from Ingrooves and started his own ship. And I rode with him. And that was my first solo endeavor using the distribution I had just got via Empire and Ghazi.
Early to the game on that.
Yes, indeed.
Now, my favorite song on there is probably Zone Out. And one of the things that I always thought was so intriguing was how the beat, on the one hand, is so soulful in that, but then you have like Chuck D from Shut 'Em Down being scratched in, which I always thought was a very odd juxtaposition. And then, of course, you got to chill with EPMD also on there. Mm-hmm. But creatively, how did you guys go from something so soulful to having something so hard with Chuck D at the same time?
Man, it was that was a combination of a few things. That was the mighty DJ DR who did the beat. Actually the same person who introduced me to Loot. So that was him on the beat, and Young RJ took the beat when I sent him, because at the time me and Young RJ was working on our album, and I sent him that joint and he liked it, and he was like, yo, we can use that. So send me the stems, and he took it and put a lot of the filler in there. He put a lot of the space, the filler sounds and the different things. And then I brought my DJ in and was like, yo, I need some cuts on this. And I let him go. I just tell him the idea of the song, and then I just let him go. And he came back with the Chuck D and the different things, and I just loved it. Like, it felt right. Like, a lot of times it's not even a science thing with me. It's not even a plan. It's not nothing consciously done. It's just a feel. And when I heard it and it's completed, and I was like, yo, this feels right. This feels like something. This feels like a beginning. This feels like an intro. This feels like me walking out on stage. Like, I was going through all those different feels, and I was like, okay, this is right. and it worked. It worked. I'll never forget the day Pete Rock called me. He was playing it, and he loved it so much because he knows the producer, DJ DR, and he called me and he loved it. He was playing it, and then he was like, "Yo, man, I loved it so much. I did my own version of the beat," and I was like, "Man," I was like, "Yo, send me that. I'm gonna do a remix." I don't think I ever got the beat sent to me, but I definitely was trying to get that official Pete Rock remix. I was trying. I was trying. But yeah, so it like I said, it was just one of them things where everything just worked. It just felt like it was supposed to be there. Like I said, it wasn't no thing of, oh, okay, I want this, beat to feel this way, and then I want everything else to be, hard or come, contract. Like it was none of that. It was just layering things to see how they feel, and that felt right.
Wow. Okay. Now, Zone Out also has a lot of lyrical things I wanted to ask you about. One, when you were talking about not being the best by your standards, but how you were still living the life how you planned it, like break down each part of that. What did you mean?
Yeah. So not being the best, what is it? Still living my life. That's how I planned it. So not being the best by my standards was me. That was basically me saying that I'm still growing. And like to this day, my whole goal is to hear, for every time you hear me, I be better than the last time you heard me. So I go find things to work on. I view albums like game tape, right? Like I listen to them, and I'm listening for the mistakes most of the time. I'm listening for things I could do better or could have done better. So I try to apply that the next time I work on something. And so for some people, they were like, "Oh man, you're pretty good." Some people were like, "You're not." But for me, I wasn't where I felt I wanted to be yet. I was still working hard, still putting my 10,000 hours in, still coming to the studio, recording like a madman in an effort to get better. That's what a lot of them recordings were, just me trying to get better. And I believed you can't get better at shooting unless you're taking shots. So that was me taking shots. But the still living my life how I planned it part, that was more so I'm still traveling the world. I'm still able to walk in these rooms. I'm still, able to support myself, off rap. So I'm still living a good life, even though I'm not where I want to be. Like, so that was the whole intent of that line is I believe I have a lot of work to do, but I still accomplished all these things and I'm able to live this way with me not being 100% where I want to be. So just imagine when I get to where I actually want to be, to where I feel I'm as nice as I want to be. And that's kind of what that line represented, or them two lines represented.
Okay. Makes sense. Also on Zone Out too, you're talking about like swallowing pride and people not wanting to do that, and they can back people in the corners and different things like that. So what experiences were inspired that?
Man, that was actually all code for a friend, well, a former friend of mine. He had at the time, like we were good friends. We had an apartment together. Ended up he moved back to Charlotte. He came back to the Raleigh-Durham area. I let him live in my house for a little while as he was getting on his feet, and we were just cool. And I came and stayed at his house one summer while we were in school, but found out he stole from us. He took a camera we had, like we had the big HD cameras where you had to put the tapes in or whatever, and we had two of them. And manager Doe, he called me. I was in Vegas, and he was like, "Yo, man, I'm looking, trying to find this other camera. We ain't seen it in a while." Come to find out, that guy had took it to a pawn shop and pawned it for some money. And now this is a guy who's doing work for us and everything, so he was getting paid money. I think he had a job at the time, and he knew. I was like, because my whole thing was like, look, bro, if you needed money, all you had to do was ask. I would have, depending on what it was for, like I would have got you, like the whole thing, whatever you asked for. but he stole, and so that trust was broken. It was gone. It was never to return. And so that was that line. Like that was the pride line. Like your pride wouldn't allow you to ask me, the guy you were living with, for, I think it was like $600. Like you wouldn't ask me for $600. Instead, you decided to steal something or take something that wasn't yours and pawn it for $600. Like that was a $9,000 camera that you pawned for $600. And so that's kind of what that line was for, was me speaking on that form of friendship with that person, and how him not swallowing his pride to ask basically ruined our friendship that we had.
Well, that's crazy. And speaking of friendship, Fat Boy Fresh Volume 2, established 1980, Friends was actually my favorite song on there. Is that the same dude you were writing about, or is that something else?
Nah, that's the relationship between the artist and fans. I didn't write it that way, but that's exactly what it is. Like it's literally the relationship between artists and fans. How, as an artist, especially now with all these different, mediums to speak directly to fans, a lot of people act as if they know you, right? Or as if you owe them things, or you have to clear whatever you're doing with them for it to be okay. And so that was just the way I was seeing it at the time, that relationship. Little brother was over, and just people, the way they were acting, like, like, I loved y'all. Why would you do this to me? How could you do this to me? And it's like, yo, we people. Like I know all y'all hear is the music, but we're people. You know what I mean? Like we go through things like y'all go through things. Like with the Andre 3000 line, yeah, sure, I got more fans than the average man, but like I'm just like you at the end of the day. So that's kind of what that was more about. It wasn't about anybody in particular. It was just me putting the relationship of artists and fans, making it look like a relationship gone bad and one person turned into a stalker. Like that's what it was feeling like at the time. And I shot the video like that, like I had, like it was like a girl who was stalking me. But she represented the fans. That's what that represented.
Okay. Yeah, I was always curious about the interpretation from the video, but you also shouted out Houdini there at the end. Of course, their song "Friends" is phenomenal.
Yes, indeed.
So, given that that's not the same thing Houdini was talking about, and the beat doesn't sound like it, what made you think of them to shout them out at the end?
I just paying homage, man. Like, just I wanted to sing that little part at the end, and I was like, yo, I'm gonna pay homage to Houdini. Like, no, it's not the same thing that they're talking about, but that still was something that inspired me as I worked on this record. So just paying that homage.
Okay. And then with Volume 3, the Happy Birthday song, I really enjoyed the fact that you were referencing your talks with your mom. And of course, she helped you out with the Snoop Dogg versus Tevin Campbell back in the day.
Absolutely.
But how she told you to keep fighting and keep writing because, you referenced the problem with your house flooding and your career not going well. So what were those conversations like with your mom? What made you want to open up to her, talk to her, and really mention that in Happy Birthday? Yeah,
my mom, man, like I'm a what do they call it? What they call sons who I'm a mama's boy, right? I was struggling for a minute. I'm not like a super duper mama's boy, but I'm a mama's boy, right? So, me and my mom, we talk, probably once every 2 weeks or so. And I don't really talk about a lot of my problems or anything like that with my mom. Like I don't burden her with that. And also when you don't want your mother in your business, you don't tell your mother your business, because mom's going to get in your business no matter how old you are.
Shout out to K Solo.
Shout out to K Solo. Your mother's in my business. So Um, at that time, I was just going through a lot, man. It was a real down period for me. And, my mom would call, we would have our, biweekly, calls, and she could tell something wasn't right with me. You can't get them past your moms. Like, your moms have that feeling, that energy where they know their kids are off. And she called me one time and she was just like, yo, like, you're not right. What's going on? Like, now this, the house flooded, little brother was done. Something else had happened. Like, it was just a series of things that just kept happening. And so we were just talking, and she was just like, listen, this life, it's a roller coaster ride. You just can't see what's coming. And her thing was like, if this is what you really feel you're supposed to be doing, don't stop. Like, keep going, keep fighting, keep pushing through. And it was those conversations that to not give up, to not quit, to not, even though things weren't going right for me, just to, stand strong. And you got to weather the storm. And that's what I saw her do. 3 kids, single mother, she worked having many jobs she had to work. She worked wherever she had to work, to make sure we were good. And it was just that keep fighting spirit, that work ethic, that never quit attitude that, I saw, but she was reminding me of. And that was her thing. It was like, yo, keep doing it. Like, keep going. Like, don't stop now. Like, what you stopping for? What's the problem? So that was a talk I needed. That was a talk I needed, because that was the first time since I had even really started my career that my mom and I really had a talk about anything involving my career that wasn't superficial. Like, we never really talked, and that's beautiful. Like, when I go home, we don't really talk about what I do. We talk about how I am and how my family doing and what's going on, but we don't really talk about my career. And that was the first time I really opened up and we talked about my career. And the words of wisdom, that advice is really what pushed me to keep going.
Interesting. Well, that's really good that you were able to have that conversation with her and that it was so impactful to you. So
yeah, man, absolutely.
Good to have your moms.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be sure to check out The History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
There will be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
With Fab 5 on Young TV back with NWA.
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national gangbang rappers.
The History of Gangster Rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
It's always gonna be shit happening in the streets. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The History of Gangster Rap in stores now.